What's going on, guys? So in today's edition of Sasuke Shinden and the Teacher Star Pupil, we're going to be covering a really huge scene where Boruto and Sarada team up in combat, and due to a mistake that Boruto makes, Sarada actually ends up having to bail Boruto out. For a bit of context, this takes place after Sasuke uses a really overpowered variation of ice release that Sasuke says is not a true ice release jutsu. It's just a imitation, but it's so complex and it's done so efficiently that anybody who sees the ice release jutsu thinks that it's an actual ice release. Now, if you're scratching your head and you have no idea what we're talking about, go to the homepage. Look at the Naruto novel section on the homepage and look for the Naruto novel set in the Boruto era, and click on the playlist that's titled Sasuke Shinden and the Teacher Star Pupil, which I'll also leave links to down in the description box to anybody who wants to read that novel and help support the channel. So getting right into it, what I really love about this scene right here is that Boruto is trying to win the favor of his sensei Sasuke by showing that when it comes to the training that Sasuke underput Team 7 through, that Boruto's able to use the methodology that Sasuke is trying to teach him. So essentially that whole sugar cube dice rolling that Sasuke had Team 7 doing in their training, Boruto, when he tried using it, was trying to use his Rasengan. Well, in the case like this, Boruto is on the level of the ship where there's only one person he has to fight. So Boruto literally only has one job. Instead of just going up to him, taking him out with a single hit, Boruto decides to get a little bit cute and he tries to use his Rasengan, and the way that he does it is he hides behind these containers. He fires up a Rasengan and Boruto ends up nearly killing the person that he's getting ready to attack because he miscalculates how much chakra he's putting into his Rasengan. He was trying to only use enough power in the Rasengan to knock the containers over. Where Boruto made his mistake is the fact that Boruto did not stop to check to make sure that the containers were actually empty, which is something that Boruto miscalculated for, and so he uses extra force and ends up blowing the containers onto the person, and Boruto freaks out and he's checking the ninja that he knocked over to make sure that that person's still alive. And as this is going on, Sarada's wrapping up her battles, and Boruto's mistake draws attention and it leads to a group of ninja coming onto Boruto's scene, and so Boruto and Sarada are teaming up, and we get this really awesome scene where we see Boruto use a water wall jutsu, which, as a reminder, this novel takes place before the events of the Vessel arc. That's why you've heard me say quite a few times that a lot of stuff that people say, when did Boruto learn how to do this? When did Sarada learn how to do this? A lot of that stuff takes place in the light novels. This is yet another example of that. So with the scene and the context finally being set, it's here I'm going to begin reading the passage from the novel, and then I'm going to come back to you guys my thoughts, and it's here I'm going to begin quoting. Boruto spotted the shadow of a man crouching down in front of the container near the center of the room. He appeared to be alone, just as Sarada had seen with a Sharingan. Behind the container, Boruto needed chakra in his palms. Up against just one enemy, his best option was to knock him unconscious with the Rasengan blast, but he needed to fine-tune the blast so that he didn't do anything more than just knock the man out. Plus, the path between Boruto and his target was littered with heavy containers on both sides. He would have to carefully examine his trajectory to avoid hitting them. He set his aim on the man's back and quietly slipped out of the shadow before launching a super controlled version of his Rasengan to make sure he didn't accidentally kill the man. The Rasengan was supposed to silently whiz ahead and knock the man out, but instead it sent a dozen or so containers flying, making a shocking amount of noise in the process. The blow hit the man squarely in the chest. As he collapsed, pieces of the destroyed containers rained down on him. Huh? Why? Boruto said. Boruto had been careful to adjust the amount of power that he used, so why had the containers flown up? He was baffled for a moment, but then it all came together for him. He thought that the containers were full, but they were actually empty. With nothing to weigh them down, the close-range Rasengan pressure had been more than they could take. He nodded in understanding just as a remarkably large container fragment fell on top of the man with a thud. Oh crap, Boruto thought. He raced over to the man, splayed out on the floor, and pushed the pieces of debris aside. He ripped off the purple clothing that covered the lower half of the man's face and brought his ear in close. The man was still breathing. Great, Boruto said. Tell me what exactly is great about this. Sarada popped her head in through the large hole in the ceiling. Sorry, my bad. My Rasengan was a little too strong, Boruto said. He kicked at the floor and jumped through the hole to the second level. My bad, Sarada snarled. Your explosion helped my enemy get away, Sarada shouted. Look, I didn't mean to. How was I supposed to know if the containers were empty? Boruto asked. That's because you never think, Sarada shouted. Crackle, crackle. Lightning shot through the air between them, and the two ninjas leapt for cover behind the containers. How many of them are there? Boruto asked. There are 4, Sarada snapped. The one with the lightnings behind the door. Boruto met her eyes briefly before flying out from behind the container to charge towards the stairs and kick down the door. Wood fragments exploded outward, quickly followed by a lightning style unleashed on Boruto. He dropped into a defensive posture and immediately guarded with the water style water wall jutsu. But as long as the water wasn't pure, it was an excellent conductor, and naturally, the lightning style pierced his water wall. Boruto shouted. A burning pain shot through his arm, and he staggered backwards. The lightning release user moved to close the distance between them. Crap, Boruto thought. The word had no sooner crossed his mind than the man's eyes were rolling in the back of his head. He sank down onto the ground, revealing Sarada standing behind him. She'd apparently punched the man in the back of his head. What were you even thinking, you idiot? Of course, electricity's going to pass through the water style. End quote. So what I like right here is I do like the fact that we see Boruto attempting to use the training that Sasuke gave to Team 7 to kind of show Sasuke that he's fully grasped everything. Earlier on in this novel, Sasuke makes it a point to say that the ninja who came before Sasuke's generation will be very proud of Boruto. This comes during a time where Sasuke thinks that Itachi would have been proud of Sasuke's student. It's one of those times where Boruto feels a lot of pressure and he overthinks the situation, and just as Sarada calls out, he didn't do his due diligence. What I really love about what you see about Boruto in this novel is that he feels so much pressure to live up to the fact that Sasuke is taking time out to train Team 7, and he wants to show very desperately that he's worthy of being Sasuke's student, and that need to impress Sasuke oftentimes leads to Boruto making some questionable decisions throughout this novel. And what I like about this is that you can apply this level of thinking to why Sasuke in the car actuation arc directly tells Boruto that he's not really ready to go on missions with them, and there's still a lot that Boruto needs to know. And what I also like about this is that Boruto, when he tries to use the water style jutsu, I know some of you guys like, of course, lightning style is going to run through water release. Boruto wasn't necessarily thinking right there, and Sarada rightfully got on to him about it. But the reason why Boruto's trying to do this is that he saw Sasuke use water release as a way to counter a weaker lightning style jutsu. But there are other factors that Boruto was not taking into account when it comes to how Sasuke was able to use the water style jutsu in order to disrupt the lightning style that was controlling Boruto's body. So what I really like about this is that Boruto is once again trying to do something that he's seen Sasuke do, but for as big of a genius as Boruto is, he hasn't quite grasped the fact that there's a little bit of a difference between his skill level and Sasuke's skill level. I think that all of us will pretty much agree that Boruto, while he is incredibly talented, there are certain things that Boruto might understand the concept of, but he hasn't quite yet been able to pull it together. Now, another thing that I find interesting about this scene right here is that we see Boruto use his water style jutsu, and this is the second time he's used water release in this novel. The first time he was actually practicing water release while taking a bath, and I know that sounds kind of funny. However, the whole reason behind this is that Boruto has already showed you that he's trying to incorporate the different chakra natures and make them stronger, which is one of the things that Sasuke did tell him in the versus Momoshiki arc, which takes place before this novel here. Sasuke tells him you need to focus on the basics of lightning release, and what Boruto's doing is he's not just focusing on the basics of lightning release, he's also going back to the basics of his wind release and the basics of his water release. And as a reminder, the versus Momoshiki arc in the anime, I believe, cut out the scene where Boruto says that he already has mastery of water release. In the Boruto manga, that was kept in there. However, the thing that I will say is that I do like how, again, we see Boruto use that jutsu, and then after this takes place, Boruto ends up getting his body controlled by another ninja that is lurking in the shadows, and you get this really awesome scene where Sarada is having to figure out a way to free Boruto from this lightning release jutsu. However, that'll be another video for another day. So my question to you guys is, number one, what do you guys think about Boruto trying to incorporate some of the training that Sasuke was given Team 7? And how do you feel about what I said, that Boruto didn't just take Sasuke's advice to relearn the basics of lightning release, but also take this time in order to relearn the basics of all 3 of the chakra natures that Boruto has? I personally love it because Boruto's one of those characters, by Masashi Kishimoto's own admittance, is a character that learns things very quickly, but he cuts corners while doing so. And so Boruto going back and looking over some of the things that he might have skipped while trying to master these chakra natures, I think that that's very in line for his character, and it shows the level of impact that being Sasuke's student has had on him as a character, which leads to that really awesome scene in the vessel arc where Boruto is able to make such a massive water release jutsu. However, that's just my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.